God, UBI? Oh, so insane, you know? It is funny too when people like Ben start talking about like what's gonna happen if we had a UBI. Let's see if he cites any studies on this.
Confucianist nightmare that causes inflation. Another Harris proposal.
Oh, no, he didn't. Wow, what a surprise. He didn't cite any studies on the effects of UBI. I can't believe Mr. Facts Over Feelings would do something like that. You know, it must just be a rare slip up from him, you know? That he wouldn't cite any actual empirical evidence on the effects of UBI. Just a rare slip up from Ben, you know? He's always usually so good about citing empirical evidence when he makes claims, so I'm just surprised.
And he did Fox News last night. Here was President Trump talking about how he thinks that God protected him from being shot, which pretty obviously is true. I mean, if you believe in God, again, it is impossible to watch the videos of that.
A priori true, you know? It's obviously true, you know? I know the all PKG God saved Trump because he directed that bullet into one of his supporters. You would think that, like, the all PKG God could, you know, like, just make it miss the crowd entirely, but I guess he was distracted or something, so he's like, you know, I got on this bullet too late. I'll just guide it into this, you know, I'll just guide it into the swinish multitude to save our dear leader.
That shooting, where 2 bullets passed within centimeters of blowing Donald Trump's head off, and not think that God had something to do with it. Here was Donald Trump saying so.
Who would have thought this was going to be happening? But it happened, and I got very lucky. Or God. I think it was God, actually.
You know who said it was not God? Ron Johnson, senator from Wisconsin, said he gave you that chart of illegal immigration.
Well, he's right about that. He actually gave me the chart. If I didn't have that chart, I wouldn't have looked to the right. If I didn't look to the right, a very bad thing would have happened. I wouldn't have been at the convention. I can just about guarantee it.
Okay, you know who's one person who speaks for God, though, is Joy Behar. So Joy Behar of The View, which is where they respect God the most. They love God over at The View. She says it's unchristian to say that God is with you, which is, I mean, I feel like it's a little bit unchristian to not see the hand of God in everything, right? I mean, I'm not a Christian, but I do know enough about Christianity to understand that Christians do believe.
Yes, Ben, we know you know a lot about Christianity because you have to, because if you just focus on your Judaism, you wouldn't have the support from the right that you do, right? Of course, we know that. That's why when Ben talks about Judeo-Christian civilization, you know, that's just him being like, hey, like, reactionary evangelicals, I know I'm a Jew, but give me a chance, you know?
God has something to do with the things that go around us. Here we go.
I'm speaking to fellow Christians. I was raised Catholic. I'm a Christian girl. There's
a lot of Christians in this country that would call Joy Behar like a heretic, you know? Like, plenty of evangelicals would hear that and be like, she's a heretical monster and not a true Christian. And when we achieve Christian nationalism, she should probably be burned at the stake.
Like this happens to you, like this assassination attempt, and you say something like God was watching me. That is a very unchristian thing to say because it's very narcissistic. What about Corey? What's his name? Comfort Corey, the fireman who also got killed.
I think it's Christian.
What about all those guys who got killed on Sandy Hook? All of those people. Yeah. It's God was watching me and not watching them. There's something very disturbing.
God should have pulled the plug on that mic yesterday.
Wait, God is the technician now?
Yes.
He'll be right back.
You needed one.
Sounds, I mean, fair enough, you know? I mean, basically, this is a religion, right? So you can just basically interpret it in any way that's convenient to you. But, I mean, fair enough. You know, if you really believe in the messaging of Jesus, it would be pretty weird to go like, God saved me and killed this firefighter. You know, that does seem a little bit, I don't know, maybe unchrist-like. Like, he saved the important person and killed the inferior person. That seems like maybe not a message that Yeshu would have gotten behind, right? I mean, I'm just guessing. You know, I don't know. I'm not a Christian, but if I've read the Bible a little, it just seems like maybe Jesus would be like, hey man, maybe you should feel a little bad for this guy that got shot. Maybe the all good God didn't have anything to do with this, because it would be weird for the all good God to kill this guy. Because that's what, if God got to decide what happens, then God decided that this guy should die, right? I don't know. I'm just, spitballing ideas here.
Oh, these ladies. They are such geniuses. You know it's not fun? Dealing with tax problems.
Oh my
Handling it
God,
alone.
Ben.
You got back taxes or unfiled returns. That can be a huge mistake. It can cost you thousands. If you don't know enough about Kamala Harris, that's our series over at Daily Wire Plus. You get 47% off when you use code FIGHT. But everybody knows her history with Lily Brown. Everybody knows that's how she got started. Okay, but that's not really the issue in this election. The big issue in this election is not even going to be how weird she is. That's going to be made apparent to the American public over and over and over. Because she is weird. Whether she's joking about falling from a coconut tree or whether she's loving Venn diagrams and electric buses and laughing in that weird manner of her. She is a weirdo, but...
Yeah, dude. Unlike Trump, not weird at all, that guy. When he has like literally like a 30-minute rant in his speech about how, like, when I was the president, we had the best water in the world, the toilets flushed. Nowadays, you can't even flush your toilet. There's barely any water in there. Like, they're at least equivalent weird, At least.
Let the American people see that for themselves. If you're the Trump campaign, don't focus in on how weird she is. Focus on how crazy she is in terms of policy. As the Wall Street Journal editorial board points out, mark her down as endorsing the spending blowouts that cause inflation, the Green New Deal, entitlement expansions, and student loan forgiveness. Until she says otherwise, we should also assume she's in favor of Biden's $5 trillion tax increase in 2025. Because again, all of the Trump tax cuts are set to expire in 2025 if she were president.
Tax increase on who, Ben? Let's be specific. Because remember, Trump's tax cuts resulted in higher taxes for the middle class. So we should be specific about, who the taxes are being increased on.
The president should presumably allow those tax cuts to expire. As the Wall Street Journal points out, the vice president's 4 years as a senator from California are another window on her worldview. She sponsored a bill to create a $6,000 guaranteed income for families making up to $100,000. That's crazy, by the way. That is a giant bag of crazy. Universal basic income, guaranteed income, is a work killer, and a redistribution.
Oh, God, UBI? Oh, so insane, It is funny, too, when people like Ben start talking about, like, what's going to happen if we had a UBI. Let's see if he cites any studies on this.
Confucianist nightmare that causes inflation. Another Harris proposal.
Oh, no, he didn't. Wow, what a surprise. He didn't cite any studies on the effects of UBI. I can't believe Mr. Facts Over Feelings would do something like that. It must just be a rare slip-up from him, that he wouldn't cite any actual empirical evidence on the effects of UBI. Just a rare slip up from Ben, He's always usually so good about citing empirical evidence when he makes claims, so I'm just surprised.
Or a fundable tax credit that would effectively cap rents and utility payments at 30% of income.
Oh, no.
That, of course, would jack up the rents. Meanwhile,
Would it? Again, Ben, we need some evidence here. We can't... He did it twice in a row. Made a claim and then didn't cite any evidence. He's having a bad day.
Co-sponsored legislation with Bernie Sanders that would pay tuition at four-year public colleges for students from families making up to $125,000, meaning that you'd spend trillions of dollars paying for everybody's college.
Oh no. The United States, the biggest and most productive economy in the world, doing the same thing that every other developed country does? Crazy. That is radical. That is a radical proposal. You know, maybe Ben's right. Maybe she is just a Marxist, you know? Very radical there. And she mentioned those tax increases in the beginning, you know? But how are we going to pay for the universal college? You know, we can't do it. I know all these other much smaller, much less economically productive, much smaller GDP countries do it, and they do it well. But we can't. That would be too much for the USA to tackle in this moment, you know?
Also, she co-sponsored Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All legislation paid for by higher income taxes.
Mm-hmm.
She has an extraordinarily long record of being really, really radical on a wide variety of issues. And
another very radical proposal, you know? The United States doing, again, the same thing that every other developed country does. Very radical, you know? Basically a Marxist-Leninist. Hey, remember when the Cato Institute accidentally uncovered that Medicare for All would cost less than our current healthcare system? In total, let alone obviously costing nothing at the point of purchase for everybody. Remember when they did that? The Cato Institute, the libertarian think tank? Ben, once again, failing to cite any evidence for his claims. He must not got very much sleep, you know?
all we have to do is go back to her campaign.
He must not got a good night's rest, I would assume. He's usually much better than this.
To note her bizarre positions that are going to hurt her in this campaign. So, for example, you may recall that back in 2020, when Kamala Harris was running for the Democratic presidential nomination, that she wanted to ban fracking. This would have been in 2019.
Oh, no.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
So, yeah.
And starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities.
Okay, so she wants to ban fracking. How is that going to work out for her in, say, Pennsylvania? And Pennsylvania is a state that is heavily reliant on the fracking industry. Fracking also happens to be one of God's great gifts to humanity.
Well, Ben, I mean, it is in the short term, but of course the problem is if we just keep doing this, God's great gift to humanity will be possibly, if the worst models are correct, the destruction of human civilization. You know, so I mean, just a thought. You know, here's an idea. Maybe in states like that, we could have jobs that have to do with green energy. You know, replace those fracking jobs with green energy jobs.
In terms of our access to fossil fuels, it has made America energy independent, effectively, and she wants to ban it outright.
Wait, Ben, I thought Biden's radical Green New Deal that never passed was making America energy dependent. Are you saying that that's not true? Are you saying that actually America is producing the most oil it's ever produced in its history, domestically? Maybe he's saying that. I don't know.
How is that going to work in Pennsylvania? We will find out. In 2020, Biden lost badly to Donald Trump in portions of southwestern Pennsylvania and southeastern Ohio, at least partly due to his comments on fracking. An outright ban on fracking is something that even Joe Biden did not endorse in 2020. So how's that going to work in places like Pennsylvania? How are her energy policies going to work in places like Michigan? How many Americans?
I don't know. Let's nationalize the oil company. Give everybody in Pennsylvania like a payment and then do that until we transition to renewables. Just an idea, you know. One of those other radical proposals that all those other, you know, radical countries do, like Sweden and Norway and Denmark.
Americans are in favor of losing their private health insurance. Is that going to be a wildly popular take? You'll remember that during the 2020 campaign, Kamala Harris also said it's going to be a wildly popular take. Pennsylvania. How are her energy policies going to work in places like Michigan? How many Americans are in favor of losing their private health insurance?
Oh, wow. Good thing we did Ben's job for him here on Pew Research. Among the public overall, 63% of U.S. adults say the government has the responsibility to provide health coverage for all. Up slightly from 59% last year, and this is from 2020. So, I don't know. Has that decreased from then till now? I'm going to guess no, you know? Well, there's your answer, Ben. It seems like most of them. Again, another claim Ben makes, no evidence, you know? I'm starting to think that maybe he's not just having a bad day.
Take. You'll remember that during the 2020 campaign, Kamala Harris also said that she wanted to ban and abolish private health insurance. So forget about you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Nope. Kamala Harris wanted a full Medicare for all, Canada-style single-payer health program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. But also, that doesn't mean that you don't get to keep... You do get to keep your doctor. You get to choose your doctor. That is the case. I guess your doctor could leave the United States, in which case, you know, might have to find a new one. The good thing about that is that you just get to pick a new one from the crop, you know? So that Medicare for All system that they have in Canada, Ben, the one that even the Conservative Party in Canada has to pretend that they're in favor of, or else they can't win any elections, that one, Ben's not making a very good case here. You know, he's going to have to do better than this.
I believe the solution, and I'm actually feel very strongly about this, is that we need to have Medicare for all. That's just the bottom line. And I'll say this, and this is, I think,
socialism. It's not even Stalinism.
Why you're also asking this question. What we know is that to live in a civil society, to be true to the ideals and the spirit of who we say we are as a country, we have to appreciate and understand that access to health care it should not be thought of as a privilege. It should be understood to be a right.
Mm-hmm.